1 year goes out for 5 years. If I see that the ladder is in service, sticker on it, and it's been within a year, I'm pretty certain it's going to work.
And by the way, the most important part of that, this is where the 1 years come in. They're going to spray the joints. When they release it the first time, they drop it. They're supposed to walk out on it, go down, come back up, and crank it up. What's that prove? That it's stable and it'll go to a public way. Then they crank it back up, lock it, do what again? Release it, drop it, crank it back up, lock it. Comfortable? What's a sticker on it? The 1 year sticker on it. It's not a five. What's a 5 year sticker? This is a 5 year sticker. What's a 1 year sticker? A little baby thing. It says it works. It's been tested and it works. It's functioning. All right, question? Next one.
Release mechanism operating properly with no special skill or knowledge as required by code.
Right, that's that lever or that release or, and who does that? The 1 years. But who knows that who makes sure that it's functioning correctly? The 5 year. Because the 5 year is going to tell you whether the thing mechanically looks, because I looked at one of them and it looked weird. Some guy stuck it in the back. So if you have to think about it, is it single action requiring no special knowledge? You know what I'm saying? It's supposed to be single action, meaning I get out there, 4-year-old or 80-year-old can figure it out. Pull this lever, that ladder's going to drop. If it's in some crazy location and I have to pull a pin and stand and lift 1 foot, it doesn't work. The 5 year guy will know that, not the 1 year guys. Okay?
And it's amazing how many different conditions.
Oh yeah, pull the pin.
I found one a couple weeks ago where the safety chain was used to keep the crank up. And then there's some that we go out and I go, I have no idea how to operate this.
Yep.
It's crazy. I don't know how they all get that way. Ladder travel to the ground properly with minimal assistance or hesitation.
Pretty self-explanatory.
We were talking a little bit about the 2 to 3 feet per second and how you really know that. To me, it's just more like it's a controlled descent. It's not just
not a guillotine.
It's not going like this. It's just kind of
deploys. If it deploys, it's okay. If it just drops like a guillotine, that meaning somebody's down below, a child, a dog, or a fireman that's not paying attention, this thing will just conk them on the head and take them out.
Ladder remains stable and in position after reaching the ground.
How do you know that? Because you have to get on it. You go what? During its first deployment, what do you got to do? Go down and go back up. We record that. Should everybody record it?
Probably.
You know what I'm saying? You're going to have to rely. Not everybody is going to want to record it, but some companies will step up and do a little bit more than required and say, not only does it work, here's a video of us deploying it. And here's a video of going back down, going back up, cranking it back up, locking it, and then doing the second. Go ahead, next.
Ladder was able to return easily to its normal position.
That's just cranking back up.
Cable appear to be in good order, ready for their intended use.
Was replaced, because it's usually you replace these every 20 or 30 years, you replace these cables. If they're brown, you want to put brown ones up? You want to put brown ones up? Keep them? Near the ocean? Or maybe I should just paint brown ones like the guy did here. Should I just paint the brown ones? Will that make it stronger? So galvanized, and they go up galvanized. And never put up cable with that plastic coating on it because it breaks in the sun. Just standard galvanized 1/4 or 3/8 cable. You don't need monster cable. The weight of the ladder and the weight, if it's 150, 350 pounds, whatever the ratio is, these 1/4-inch cables will do 1,400 pounds. So you don't need monster cable. Got it? Going through the pulleys, so pulleys can be redone. Go ahead.
Pulley assemblies appear to be in good condition, moves freely, no internal rust. No cast iron pulley assemblies are acceptable.
So if we find some cast iron ones, why do we have to replace them?
Brittle.
They're brittle, that's all. They'll shatter. So,
Counterweights appear to be in good condition with no apparent distress or internal rust.
yep. That's the boxes. You guys remember us yesterday? We saw the boxes. full of, if they're not super tight on top, what fills into it?
Water.
Water. Water that takes junk metal. What do they throw inside these boxes? Nice new metal they buy from the steel company, or junk metal? They fill it with junk metal, and sometimes so that it doesn't rattle, they fill it with cement. Then they put a cap on it. Remember, I have a master's degree in reverse stupidity. I know all the wrong ways to do this, right? But if they don't cap it correctly and seal it, what happens? Water gets in, turns this into this, and what weighs more? 1/4 inch of steel or 1 inch of rust? 1 inch of rust, sending the cantilever into what position, guys?
Horizontal.
Points the nose to the sky, and if it's pointing to the sky, will you write a violation?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah? So they cheated, you saw them cheated with a cable yesterday. So what did they do? They fix it for 2,500 bucks or fix it for 250 bucks. How do you fix it for 250?
Cable or Phillips.
Put a cable on the tail, you pull it up and do what?
Lock it.
Tie it to anything. Why? Because now it's horizontal, and when you walk by, will you write a violation on a horizontal cantilever? No. Because the fox has been in the hen house how long? 100 years. Doing what? Counting chickens for you. And it seems that this chickens ain't multiplying for some reason. Okay, next.
Protective chain barrier on the left platform is adjacent to the drop ladder. Opening and a secure single action with no special knowledge to operate in this 24 to 36 inches of platform.
So that's just the opening, which is usually 24 inches to access a ladder or access anything. Can you have it 5 feet wide? Gotta close everything up on 4 sides, and you gotta leave just an opening enough for you to access whatever you're getting into, right? So all holes must be closed up on 4 sides, and you leave an opening, and across that opening, what do you need? A little chain, okay? Then talk about down here what you're signing.
Yeah, so we have a couple of caveats. Repair and re-inspection. If any defects are found in the system, or if any specific item does not pass, then such item shall be repaired and completed as soon as possible. A repair report and engineering oversight.
Yep.
A repair report, which is going to show. An engineering oversight is required. All work must be conducted under the auspices of design professional rendered. All work must be.
So we've got a fire escape, it's got some problems. We need a permit? Repair it or paint it? We need a report.
They're fixing the fire escape.
Put the word out there, we're going to be putting in some additional bolts. So, and by the way, and this is a great example, on train wrecks, you need this much reporting. This is a train wreck report. On your fire escapes that we looked at yesterday, right, and it had a couple of minor things, do we need a report of this caliber? No. So it could be what's called engineer light. Does it still need somebody to watch the vendor doing the job? Because who signs off at the end, the vendor or this guy?
This guy.
So this guy, permit or no permit, right, needs to watch the vendor. The owner control the vendor, or the engineer controls the vendor? The owner finds the vendor. The engineer controls the vendor. And then if the vendor wants to penetrate a wall, what's he got to go get? Then he needs to have some sort of license. Can you pull a license in California without some sort of permit without some sort of license? Most general contractors, most ornamentals will have a license, won't they? Okay, it's actually, I think it's a C16.
Yeah, we think so.
Isn't it?
I don't know if we have fire.
C16?
Some fire escapes on 3 stories.
I think that's the license. Okay, so that's the important part. So read the next part of the equation.
And then, I declare the penalty of perjury that I, as the owner, agent, or other acceptable age day, have performed the testing and non-inspection of the whole fire escape system of the subject property to the roof and public way to grade and accept responsibility for the valid foregoing.
So the only one that can sign it, it says right at the bottom, the owner, the agent, or the other, right? And guess what happens? You're going to have some owners who don't give a damn.
I'm reeling up the.
And they're going to sign this, and they're going to make and call the governor, and they're going to make all kinds of noise for you. But this thing already had a 5-year. Are you really gonna push the issue on whether this owner can sign? And you know he literally just signed it right there in front of your face and says, yeah, I walked it, here's your document. Is it that critical? Because it already had a 5-year. So some people will do the right thing, but those that don't want to do the right thing, what are you gonna get from them? They're just gonna sign it and hand it over to you, say, I did it, or I did it, you weren't here when I did it. And what do?
That's the problem with any
Because
self-inspection.
5 years later, what comes?
5 years. This guy.
You know what I'm saying? So, right now it's backwards. You know who's been watching? The foxes have been counting your chickens. So now we have a real audit going on, how many chickens you really started off with. But that's what this is. So, we've made it so that it's gonna save some monies a little bit, because some people will have their management companies walk up and down the fire escapes while you're there doing your 1 years. Some people who have low income or they don't have the ability to hire anybody to do that will do it themselves, and they'll sign this document. But every 5 years, they'll have this guy come out. So that should give you some comfort, okay? Now let's take a look at the 5-year, because after this class, we're gonna go outside, inspect that tower, and then everybody's looking. Okay? So, good, clear separation of powers, guys. What's a 1 year, what's a 5?
You brought a...
So think back at all the buildings you've received 1 years that you thought were 5s, and what do you need to do?
Logan would love you, let's red tag it.
All you have to do is send them a copy of the
They're
questionnaire.
almost done, they're fun.
Said, hey, thank you for the 1 year, I just need a 5-year. That's what I asked you for, was a 5-year. So are you writing a new violation? Or are you just updating the 1 year that should have been a 5? Because had they completed their violation? No, but you already signed off on it like 6 months ago or a year ago. So you want to rehash old soup, or you just want to say, hey, have your design professional sign one of these so I can attach it to your 1 year. And now for the next 4 years you can continue giving me this 1 year. Okay? Alright, so let's take a look at the 5s. The 5s are pretty much,
I just feel so vindicated
she just
now.
realized she's overjoyed of the fact that in 2020 the code is done. By the way, we wanted to ask, San Fran, are you guys adopting? They're adopting it for 2020. San Fran also adopted?
It's on the fire marshal's desk right now. He really want to do it, but there's a lot of
Pushback?
to cut through.
That's their best for years and years.
Okay, so Carmen, so Oakland is ahead of San Fran, but
Yeah.
San Fran,
Once in our lives!
He just wanted
We're
to.
having someone!
so here's it's okay, you guys in 2020 are on the IFC, but they've been on the 604 and the 908 since 92.
But I also want to say that one reason that you have been sort of good about it is because firefighters can use those fire escapes. So the first thing we do when we show up on, if there's something going on, we ladder that fire escape and we send crews out to the roof, option via that fire escape. So we actually use them and check them.
Wow.
A lot of times it's still over the roof.
Yeah.
Trees and water.
So again, we're just gonna try to, maybe we can button this up a little bit more, a little bit more coordination under
So it's
the
important-
building, the
it's
fire,
important
and the
to
house.
That they work.
Yeah, we do a lot of inspections here. So the most important part here, guys, now we're gonna be going to 5. Notice how it's 25 questions. And these 25 questions put fear in the heart of any design professional, because this is all liability questions. But there's also some testing questions in here too, meaning that he has to physically, he's performing a 1 year during a 5, but it's all structural questions. So we have a simple checkbox on the front here, and this is just so that you guys, when you see it, that whether the fire escape passed, you know, it's an excellent, good, fair. Everything is going to be fair or poor. Only a few fire escapes that are in the 25 to 50-year-old range, or usually 25, hit the good. Excellent is brand new, galvanized, installed yesterday. So get ready for a lot of fairs all the way across, even though they just finished painting, because we're saying the 100-year-old structure, never before seen under the microscope of anyone, is in fair condition. Got it? So that's the checkbox. So let's go to page 2. First question is,
Is there a current 1 year?
so he's looking for the sticker. That means somebody's greased the connection. Number 2,
Fire escape is to code, meets industry standards of the date of installation.
that's a quick answer. Is it homemade or factory made? Most of your fire escapes are factory made. A couple of homemades will let you know right away when there's a homemade that sneaks in here. Usually without a permit, yeah.
Are there any pre-existing non-conforming issues that require AHJ notification or approval?
Such as they took out the staircase and they put in a ladder. Guess what we call and say? Can't do that. Got it? So we'll let you know, because we see the pieces missing, we're like, and they threw in a ladder. We'll let you know. You make the final call whether you're going to allow that. Go ahead.
Hey, quick question on the, question number 2, fire escape is the code meets industry standards. With the wooden constructed fire escape staircases on the backs of buildings, we've seen some here that I would say were not to building code as far as the steps are inconsistent, things of that.
Yeah,
We don't really
we
have
will note
we
that.
don't really have a way of knowing, and the building that I'm specifically referring to, and I only know this because there was a fire there, was built in 1904. I mean,
Right.
I have no idea who actually built that. As a general rule of thumb, would you, looking at older buildings of that age, over 100 years, say they were
No, so we'll talk about how we load test fire escapes that are metal. We'll talk to you about how we only reinforce wooden structures with a lot of metal, so we call it Frankensteining the fire escape, basically, or replace them that are wood.
Okay.
If they've been around too long. So we'll talk about that. I have some pictures to show you just what it means. But it involves an engineer and an architect to make that determination to help you say, yeah, we gotta get this thing out of here. It's not
Some of
repairable.
it's just really an opinion of, when we look at it, I mean, I don't know the code from 1904 either.
Right.
But it looks like it was not redone 20 years ago, correct? There's a building I'm working on in Vallejo, it's got these little 3-foot wide interior stairs, and I know it's not right today, but I'm assuming it was when it was built.
So,
And we can, you know, either if something really looks amiss and it wasn't permitted, we can always check the permits, you know, if it wasn't permitted. It's a little bit of a judgment call, that's why we really count on the AHJ to tell us.
and that's question 3. So whenever we have a question 2 problem, question 3 says,
Right to us.
is there any pre-existing non-conforming issue that requires AHA notification or approval? We don't want to make this approval. We don't want the owner saying, hey, but my inspector said I can do this. Because now we're at odds with you. We say, nope. The final say-so is back to you.
And that puts it
So
really
2
on
and
the
3
owner- the
go
owner-
hand in hand.
It puts it on the owner to prove that it was, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of times I'll see something and, again, there was a building that I looked at that this one, you know, fire escape was removed and they're gone. I go, well, was the building redesigned? Redesign the interior of the building to.
This is actually an Oakland one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know the address? I don't remember. So they removed there was 2 fire escapes, front and the rear. They removed the rear, the front, because the engineer said so. And now we're re-examining it, and there are 5, and we're saying,
That's what we agreed.
you're missing your front fire escape. No, we were told we could take it off, not by you guys, but by the engineer, who obviously made a mistake, because he didn't read question 2 and 3, you know, because that's not our call. And so,
Well, he may not have made a mistake, but I don't agree
yeah,
that it should have been taken. And sometimes it's really, you can't take off a fire escape unless you've modified the inside of the
the
building.
inside, the
to
interior,
allow
2 means of
previous-
egress.
Which happens.
Yeah, and by the way, a lot of your old stock, it'll always have a fire escape forever, because it's a long rectangle building. They exceed certain length requirements, and there's an interior stair plus 2 external fire escape. Just stand it, and when we see one missing, we're like, and there's holes in the wall or cutoffs at the wall, we're like, where's the fire escape that used to be here? Oh, you know, and they saw it. So that's why we have question number 3 for you.
Cisco, if I can clarify, and the board helps clarify this. The idea, and I don't think most owners can understand, when we do this inspection, this is really just to say whether we load tested or not.
Right.
We're not, if this were to pass, if we were to pass this and say, you know, pass, you know, a lot of the owners are going, oh, it's passed, I'm done. And that's not the case. We're saying it's safe to be load tested. You know, we're asserting that, you know, you're gonna put sand on here and it's not gonna fall down.
Yeah, it's called a pre-load test evaluation form. Saying that she's either ready for load test or other evidence of strength. So the fire escape that we did yesterday, 11-story, 100-year-old structure, we have no problem with the bolts. So she's ready for a load test. That's what the client, that's the next step for the client. Now there are other evidence of strength, because we're not changing any bolts. There's a few minor repairs, but some cases, if all of a sudden, no, they're going for the full refurb, then there is no load test. But there's going to be a report that needs to be generated to say what needs to be changed out. Question number 4, welds.
All welds pass by visual observation only unless noted rebolted, x-rayed, or load tested. There's no indication of any internal rust.
Right? So, can we have welded fire escapes?
So we can see.
Can we load test them? You want to negate the load test? What do you do to an all welded fire escape? Just, no rebuild, just bolt it. Wherever it's welded, just leave the welds there, put in a bolt. Now the bolt becomes the master and the weld becomes the slave. And what are we certifying? The bolt. And now we've got 200% on a fire escape that now has a bolt and a weld. What do we really care about? Bolt. Now we've met other evidence of strength. But in some cases, the mathematics doesn't work. An all welded fire escape, fully galvanized like you have in the back over here, does it need to be rebolted or does it need just to be load tested? Load tested. And that might be a great class that we can schedule up in the future. As you know, we do a lot of these classes. I don't know if you guys know, this is a free class. You charge nothing to do these classes. And so a lot of times in load testing, we use it as an opportunity to show you guys how load testing is done. So we'll bring sandbags and water bags and load cells.
Just went through one.
Yeah, we'll just show you.
I just went through one.
We'll show you the crazy on this. Next question?
Overall fire escape system passes, is ready for its intended use by initial evaluation, load testing.
So the question there is, overall, the whole fire escape looks like it's in great condition. This is just us saying, overall, everything is great on this fire escape. So that's just, it's called an overall question, and it's also looking at the envelope of the building too. Next one.
Footings and piers pass, legs to the ground supports and supports the grade on footings or piers are in good order.
Okay, so see if we miss any part of the fire escape on all these questions. So right now, an architect or an engineer answering every one of these questions and stating that there's no internal rust in any of these is really putting his license on the line. Do you understand?
And, you know, I guess as far as an engineer, there was one I inspected again a couple months ago, and it was a fairly new system. And when we talk about evidence of strength, my feeling was this was permitted, it was built within the last 7 years. There's really nothing needed for other evidence of strength. But I noticed things like it had legs to the ground, had these beautiful concrete piers and these metal pads, and there was no grout underneath.
Non-shrinking grout.
No grout at all between the other side of the metal plate and the footing. And we actually got we got the original plans, and the actual detailed original plans called for it to have this grout underneath. So that's the kind of things that I would recognize.
Minor. Yeah, but it needs to be done, otherwise we can't sign off on other evidence of strength. Okay, walls.
Walls of attached fire system passes by visual inspection only on dating evaluation. External wall envelope has no bulging, deflection, or water infiltration.
So this is our opinion of a wall, because if there's a problem with the wall, we have to bring another engineer in to do a wall inspection. But when we look at it and she's straight, she's not missing all her mortar or anything like that, because if she is, what do we do? Can we go any further? So we now need to bring in another wall specialist, or if that engineer that we're using does both, can the owner use that engineer to inspect the fire escape and do the wall reconstruction? Yeah, they can. It's all part of the same system. They just save some money, but otherwise, no, we got a wall guy and you do the fire. Okay, great, there's 2 guys. It's 2 parts, that's all. Number 8.
Supports in the masonry wall pass, metal supports in the masonry wall shown. no indication of water infiltration, spalling, loose mortar, or masonry damage.
So when you go out here and look at your thing, it's some fire escapes are embedded, 8 to 12 inches deep only. And if it's rusting, what do we see outside?
Staining.
Staining. It's called dragon tears, rusty tears. If not, and it's breaking up a little bit on the facade, on the face, what is that? That's just caulking. That's just, you know, minor repair. Because if water's in there, you'll know, because what does the steel do for you? Gives you a signal. Rusty tears. Next question.
Supports in the masonry. 9. Through bolts in the wood structure or masonry walls pass, bolts are tight.
That's these things. Whenever there's a through bolt and a sandwich on the back of the plate, that's what this is. But we're only looking at the outside. We only see this much when we're looking at it. So what's it need in order to verify that? Load test it. Because we can't see inside the building. Got it? So load testing is mandatory because what could be behind there? We have water leakage. Right? And a lot of times if this is happening, what do we see outside the wall? A stain. So thank God fire escapes give us signals. Next one.
Platforms, wooden angles, steel frame, pass, no deterioration or internal rust.
Perfect. So everybody see this? It's nice. This is an angle, and this is an angle. This is a corner. Looks good? And the guy, before we got there, painted it. And before you got there to do it, you say he painted it. Looks good? Visually, right? Looks good? Yeah. Nothing when that happens. Just trying to take the first guy out here. But on the backside. On the backside, what happens? And where's the nut? It's missing. And this is the box frame that's holding all those slats. So that's why guys, they paint their fire escapes before they call you out. And does a one-year guy look for these things? That's why fire escapes fall apart. So, look at all the deterioration. Look at the thinning of the material here. You put your fingers through this. That's why I saved this. I had a case in New York that was actually showed the guy talking about the elevator guy down the 16th floor. Fell just one floor through. I actually brought all these pieces to the case and I left it in front of the jury for the entire trial. And he won the case because the other guy said, "Get that smoking gun off the table." But they didn't. He left it there all day. So the jury, one of the questions they asked the jury, what made you decide, you know, they sort of questioned the jury. They said, the history of rust and how it grows, the guy was saying that he'd been maintaining it with paint. And like, you can't maintain rust with paint. And he won the case. Millions of dollars. Next one.
Stair stringers, upper and lower hanger clips, pass, no apparent internal rust.
That's it. On a stringer, just the top clips and the bottom clips, because the treads have their own questionnaire. You guys understand? We're not talking about the entire stair case. We're saying the top of the stringer, the bottom of the stringer is connected. Good question? Next question.
Stair treads, plate, slats, grating and bolts and or welds pass, no apparent internal rust.
You guys see that word, no apparent internal rust? If he lies on there, what happens? Somebody falls through. Lawsuit? So if a client paints over that, you don't think he has the skill set to know that it doesn't look natural? If a client paints over this, you don't think he has the skill set to know that it's not natural? Well, 1 year, guys, what happens? They look for paint. Looks okay. It might change the obvious, but are they going to really look for the truly obvious connections? They're not trained. How many years you went to school? Almost 8? Yeah. What's the 1 year guy's going to have? 8 weeks? 8 minutes? 8 months? 8 years to put his license on the line.
I went for 8 years, but then that's 16 years training with you.
Next question.
Railings on platforms, stairs, and catwalks passed, no repairs for the rest.
So, any of your tubular railings that are rotting from the inside up, because when you put these up in 1915, did they paint the inside of these tubes?
No.
It was pretty solid on this side, right? But when you get, and then they start welding these reinforcement angles and stuff like that, so will this take a 200-pound lateral load test? He knows. He knows that even though it looks great, he knows what the inside looks like. That's why it's so critical that a 5-year guy talk about rail structure, not a 1-year guy. And if something's going to get repaired, any repair can it be overseen by any 1-year guy? Must be done by a 5-year engineer, right? If the 1-year guy wants to repair a fire escape, can he sign off on his own stuff? He must get a 5-year, so he must get good or bad structural engineer, a good or bad architect, or good or bad other, right? To double check, so it's some checks and balances. Next one.
Fixed ladder to roof, bolts and or welds passed.
Who's that for?
Firefighter.
And did we go to the roof yesterday, guys, to the 11th story, check your roof? That ladder looked pretty good?
Yeah.
Except for one little,
Yeah.
so was that important to you that we went all the way to the roof for you?
Absolutely.
So that's the key. We know who's gonna use it. The firemen are gonna use it, tenants are gonna use it, so we're gonna protect the firemen, we're gonna protect the tenants, and this class is at least gonna save how many lives? Could be more, but for sure, I have changed one of you in here, your mind, and you'll never look at fire escapes the same. Next.
Balance ladders and fixed ladders to grade, bolts and or welds, weight box, release mechanism, and other components passed. Those seem to be great.
I think San Fran is outlawing scissor ladders, right? You can keep one and maintain it indefinitely, but if you have to replace it, it's gotta be a cantilever. Why?
Well, the scissors ladders, often they don't work, and also when they don't maintain them, it's critical when they go down too fast and it can take somebody out.
Or cut your fingers. That's why it's called a scissors ladder. Got it? So that's their answer to the scissors ladders. They're trying to phase them out. Okay, next question.
Cantilevers, bolts and or welds, weight box, release mechanism, and other components passed. Properly balanced.
And a lot of you don't know this, but you can actually create a very simple release mechanism on a weight balanced cantilever that can only be activated up above. It's also an anti-theft device, so that when you release it, it lets the thing drop 2 to 3 feet per second, hits the ground and stays down. And if somebody from below wants to pull it down, they can. Because right now, I can use a pole, I can use a jacket, I can use a simple rope with a hook, and I can pull the cantilever down and do what? Into your building. Break in. But if I put a release mechanism on it, which is standard all over the US, it stops. It's called a release mechanism. Okay, next question.
Catwalks, bolts and or welds passed. Catwalk is complete, properly attached as per code, guides users to egress, stair, or ladder to grade.
So you have to have a catwalk. You can't just get on a regular roof. If somebody re-rubbered your roof and they never put the catwalk back, guess who finds that? Who tells you? Let me tell you. By the way, if you don't have a catwalk, NA, not applicable. If you don't have stairs, not applicable. So these questions, you either have an answer for, or you have to say not applicable. So the simplest fire escape to the most complex fire escape is covered. Every question here covers it. Next question.
All components, doors, windows, window guards, cages, and gates are ready for their intended use and operate with a single action, requiring no special knowledge.
Including grates on the windows that have a padlock on it. How about those? You want to hear about those? They're allowed? How about air conditioners in the window, feeding the fire escape? Are those allowed? But you better have an answer. It gets hot out here. What can they put in there? They put in the inside units that stay inside the property. They have that snorkel coming out of the back and they exhaust out the window. Can those be pulled away quickly and get out? Can the owner put a hole in the wall and stick the AC unit in the wall up high and out of the window and doesn't hit your head when you go out in the fire escape?
Permit.
Oh, the permit guys, there you go. Yeah, with the permit. Next guy, go ahead.
All electrical power is 10 feet or more away from the system or covered by code.
The electrical question, you know how long that's been in the code in the NFPA? Since 1926. Back then it was 6 feet. Okay? Why do we care whether a fire escape, a 220 power or 440 power coming into a building is within 10 feet of a fire escape?
Oh, 440, next to a fire escape.
Let me give you 55 million reasons. Right? But also, aside from somebody can just naturally grab it, what's the other reason? Water and electric don't. And so when you're fighting a fire, you got enough water getting on these things. So this is an important question. And they're not going to move the power line. A lot of times there's too much money, a lot of things going on. What can they do? They insulate it. That big horse collar thing, it's orange usually, and it's going to stay there for the life of the building. And they usually go out 10 feet, right? From the unit out 10 feet. Next.
This fire escape system illuminated.
Oh, this is a great one. Any illumination required in 1915? So every fire escape you're going to see does not have illumination. But if there's a code change of use, something, did that trigger that all egresses be lighted? Well, we note that too. A fairly new renovated building inside, yet the fire escape has no lighting outside, so we may make a note that says, I think this should have had a light out here, and that's part of our question 3, talking to the AHJ. Next question.
Does the system have any interior or exterior obstructions such as AC units, plants, pipes, trash, etc.?
Okay, so that's hoarders and all this other stuff that goes on these structures, right? What's the next question?
Does the system have any storage of flammables or code restricted items on or underneath?
So, barbecues, generators, or things with cans of gasoline on a... So we'll answer that question for you also.
The fire escape is constructed with aluminum, steel, wood, cement, other
So we'll tell you what it's made of,
painted or galvanized.
and if it's wood, we're going to talk about that in a second, right? Next.
Whether it's painted or galvanized.
So that's the paint question. Painted, galvanized, or stained.
Is the system maintained, painted, or stained, and waterproof?
Yep. Why must you maintain? Why must it be structurally sound, and why must it be kept painted? But as soon as you don't paint it anymore, what does it become automatically? Not structurally sound. Right? Fire escapes rust from the outside in or inside out?
Inside out.
Inside out. Where'd you learn that? Today. So that's, otherwise people realize that they thought the rust would come from the outside in. No, it's already starting from inside out. And that's why a fully brown fire escape is it structurally sound at all? Been ignored for 25 years. Question?
Has the owner been notified by email or hand delivery that EPA lead paint rules apply because the system was built prior to 1978 and then will be allowable as a repair?
So even though it's galvanized, it may have a lead-based paint primer on top of that. So can we burn that
No.
under the EPA guidelines? Can I scrape it
Yeah.
on the EPA
You
guidelines?
got permit though?
Nope, I need to have an EPA renovator's license. And is there a permit process for anything that has EPA lead paint?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there openings within 10 feet of the fire escape stairs protected with acceptable fire resistance rating for code or AHJ or is the building fully sprinkled?
So this is a question. You know what this question is about? This question is about that there's been renovations to the building that nobody knows about. Do you guys know that we're supposed to fire rate a wall? But again, that's based on interior activity, changes, code compliance, code upgrade. Because in some cases near the fire escape, they were supposed to fire rate the entire wall. Nobody even touches this stuff. But you know who we notify? We don't know this stuff. We go back to you. Say, hey, I don't know, but I don't know the history of the jacket, but we could put yes, no, or CAHA for this one. Next question.
The interior exterior exit system is in general safe condition, inadequate working order, and free from rot, fungus, deterioration, decay, or improper operation.
Perfect. So this one is dealing with wood, some wood structures, steel structures, cement structures. So now it has the same pains and perjury. But at the pains and perjury on this one for the 5 years, who can sign off?
It has, design professional.
Design professional audit, those are the only people that can sign these things. Okay, did we miss any of the fire escape components, to your knowledge, guys?
No.
So this is just a draft, whether or not this is acceptable by your city has to go through legal or through your fire marshal or whoever wants to review this, but this is just industry standard questions. This is not code enforcement, this is not code compliance, this is just an industry standard guideline. So now let's take a look at this next piece. This is good and bad engineers. This engineer says this fire escape had only 4 issues, fixed 1 tread, fixed 1 connection, paint it, and I'll pass it. And I went there and I condemned the whole fire escape. This is in New Jersey. And you know who found this out? Was it the owner or the secretary? The secretary. What brought the attention to this was that during a fire call, a fireman actually fell through one of the floors over here during a fire call. Okay? This is in Chicago. They said, I need this thing painted. It already passed an engineer's review. The engineer's review said that everything is fine. I just need a price to paint. And this is for a building that was, I think there was 15 of these fire escapes. So I went there and looked at it, and this is what I found. And I said, you know, so here's what you have damage to fire escapes. You know who fixes these? The insurance company. You know when a truck hits your fire escape, it's called a fire escape lottery ticket. Because they have to fix the fire escape, not just what we damaged, but we have to bring the whole system back into compliance. So the car, truck, or whatever hit that fire escape, the owner just got lucky. Even if he hasn't maintained it ever, the insurance, that truck has to fix it from bottom to the top and load test it. So if you have any of your friends drive trash trucks, you know, send them around. All right, so this is inspections on housing, Section 8 housing in certain locations. Yep, this is City Hall. See the broken tread in City Hall?
Nice.
Going to the mayor's office. Oh, you guys think it's funny for City Hall? How about you guys?
That's not us.
That's not us.
So I went and inspected this, and they were training that day, and I ping-ponged it, and guess what happened when I ping-ponged this thing?
Well, when you go out to ours, I got to tell you.
No, I went to look at it, she's pretty good. She's an all-welded galvanized fire escape.
Nice
Might be a
going.
few things, but very minor. You guys are gonna be surprised.
Wow.
Because I'm not gonna
I told you it
inspect
was
that.
good.
I'm not gonna inspect that fire escape. You guys are gonna inspect that fire escape. You're gonna give me recommendations of what needs to be done there. And I think you'll be very pleasant. I did.
Manny, you go first.
No, that's the acting
Okay,
assistant
look
fire
at
marshal,
this.
Catherine.
I'm gonna delegate that to a supervisor.
This is how bad the house is out there.
Kirby.
You guys understand that it's what you don't see that the 5-year people know is there. Okay? And now you go inside the building. What you don't see, when the water is leaking inside, what's it normally do? It'll stain the outside. And look how solid that is, and look how eaten that is on the inside, because it's moist. It's got air and moisture every day for its whole life. For
You
100
guys
years.
open that up to be able to inspect that? Or?
Well, that's a great question. Do I want to spend $500 opening up each connection, or spend $50 putting a new Hilti bolt next to it? Do I let sleeping dogs lie, or do I tear the building apart that's 100+ years old and open up a can of worms? You duplicate the connection.
Build a new building.
Leave the building alone. You guys understand that? Either with a new epoxy bolt or a through bolt all the way through with a plate on the inside. Got it? That's called other evidence of strength. Don't go looking for trouble. It's already there.
That's a little.
So, good engineers, bad engineers. Good architects, bad architects. What do they all have in common? Same questionnaire. You put this questionnaire, you will scare engineers out of this business. You will scare architects out of this business that just don't want anything to do with this. The bad ones. The good ones will say, hey, there's an opportunity here. I'm going to do the right job. I'm going to build a relationship with the building department. And from these fire escapes, guess what else they have from the owner? The architects and engineers. Continued business. The roof now, the cement foundation, whatever. and this is the bastard child of egress. It's like homeless. Yeah, we don't have a homeless problem. So you start looking for it, and then what do you have?
Libby Land.
Encampment of one.
Whoa, I did.
Guys, so the tags, you guys like the tag idea?
Yeah.
So your first step into the city, you're gonna go fix fire escapes, or we're gonna go identify fire escapes and their status? So it's a status process, so in the first year, you really just, I need to know the status of every fire escape out there, whether it's a red, a yellow, or a white, so we can get a program going. And if you send out a notice requiring that, as of January 1, every fire escape has to have a 5-year, and you know what you send it out with? That everybody's gonna read? Tax bill. So work with your city, that the tax bill that's going out to everybody had from the fire department, something declaring that in 2020, every building in Oakland is supposed to have a 5-year attached, supposed to be doing, so basically ride that stamp.
We'll get Tina to take care of that.
Oh, Lord.
Tina,
Guys,
Where do we sit?
You ain't even in a party now.
so with that, tag, is this gonna be important for the firefighters that they see the white, the